Everyone watching from has been bracing for the same thing. We saw what the man in yellow did to Miranda. We watched Jade realize that his past selves weren't simply torn apart by monsters, that they were murdered by people in the town, and the show has started pushing the idea that the dead may not fully leave this place. And so the assumption took hold that Tabitha's fate, the one the show keeps hinting is somehow worse than Jade's. She gets eaten. She gets devoured by the thing in the yellow suit, and whatever is left of her becomes trapped in the town's cycle forever. It's a grim ending, and it fits. But I don't think that's it. I think the real fate the town has been building toward for Tabitha is something far more cruel, and the more I sit with it, the more the whole show starts to click into place. Tabitha doesn't get eaten. Tabitha gets made to watch. Tabitha was never just another person who took a wrong turn onto that road. The show has gone out of its way to mark her as different. She's one of the reincarnated figures, tied to the deepest layers of whatever this place is, and the entity already seems to have a claim on her that goes back further than this cycle. That's the part the show treats as fairly settled. Where it gets interesting and where we step into theory is what that claim is actually for. Because if you look at the pattern the town keeps returning to, it isn't really about killing the woman at the center of it. It's about her children. Think about the moment that should have been a throwaway piece of backstory but never quite sat right. Victor's mother hid him and his sister in the root cellar. Now, the show gives us a reason for this. Christopher had changed. Miranda no longer trusted him, and she hid Victor and Eloise somewhere he wouldn't know to look. That's the canonical setup, and I want to be honest that it's there because it matters. But notice how cleanly that scene also fits a darker reading. A mother hiding her children underground, in a place she believed might keep them safe, during the exact stretch of a cycle when the town turns on itself. One theory that's been gaining traction is that what Victor's mother was really protecting her children from wasn't just one man losing it. It was the town. It was the thing the town does at the end of every cycle. And here's where the central idea lands. What if, and this is where the theory really begins, the town tries to repeat that original sacrifice through Tabitha's children, and she's forced to witness it? Not a quick death, not even her own death. The specific engineered torture of watching the kids she raised be taken in front of her, knowing they won't simply die but stay trapped in this place in torment forever. If you're a parent, there is no version of being eaten alive that competes with that. That's the fate worse than Jade's. That's the thing the show has been quietly circling. Once you're looking through that lens, the evidence starts piling up fast. Go back to the very beginning of the series. The voices wanted Ethan dead almost immediately. We never got a clean reason for why a child specifically became the target so early, but under this theory it's obvious. The cycle runs on a child sacrifice, and Ethan was the candidate this time around. Then look at Abby. Abby was about to kill Ellis, her own son, and Boyd is the one who stopped her. At the time it played as the town's psychological poison driving a mother to the unthinkable. But maybe it wasn't random madness. Maybe the town was doing exactly what it always does, steering a parent towards sacrificing their child, and Boyd happened to break the script. That brings us to the line that, in my opinion, is the strongest single piece of support for all of this. The voice on the phone, the one pretending to be Thomas, tells Jim, "But they're not your children anymore, are they?" That's not a throwaway taunt. And if that voice is connected to the same force behind the man in yellow, then the line becomes terrifying. It may be the entity telling us, flatly, that the children of these reincarnated figures already belong to it. Through Tabitha, the claim could extend to her kids. They were never really hers to keep. And if the town's escape hatch is a child sacrifice, suddenly Jim's death takes on a second layer too. On the surface, Jim dies because knowledge comes with a cost. The man in yellow tells him as much, and references Tabitha digging the hole. But under this theory, there may be a second reason underneath that one. Jim was the parent most likely to physically stand between the town and his children, the one who would have fought hardest. Remove him, and you've removed the biggest obstacle to the thing the cycle needs to happen. The same logic could even be pointed at Donna, who in some ways functions as a wall between the townspeople and any single vulnerable family. These aren't random casualties or random survivors. They may be pieces being moved around a board we're only now starting to see. Now let's talk about Victor, because Victor might be the key that proves the whole thing. The monsters don't kill Victor. They've had him for decades. He wanders, he gets into danger, and yet he survives in a place that chews through newcomers in days. The theory that fits the rest of this is chilling in its simplicity. The monsters can't kill Victor because he was never theirs to kill. Maybe Victor was never meant to die by monster attack at all. Maybe he was meant to be part of whatever final choice ended that cycle, and Miranda broke the pattern by hiding him instead. The creatures don't claim him because claiming him isn't their job. He's a debt left unpaid. And this is where it goes from a neat idea to something that might explain the entire current season. If Victor was meant to be part of that final choice and slipped out of it, then his survival is a glitch. It's an anomaly that threw off the cycle, and the town has been limping along out of sync ever since, trying to course correct. There's that line from the tunnels, one of the creatures telling Victor that one day they'll make him stay. Under this reading, that's not an idle threat. He's still owed. They're just waiting for the moment to be right. Some of you are already where I'm going with this, and honestly it breaks my heart a little. Because if the cycle ends with the child of one of these reincarnated figures being sacrificed, and Victor is exactly that, the surviving child of one version of Tabitha's soul, then Victor may be the one who finishes it. Picture the endgame. The town reaches its breaking point. The choice is put in front of everyone, sacrifice a child to leave, and the obvious target becomes Ethan. Or maybe Julie. And Victor, who has lost everything to this place, who has carried more than anyone, steps forward and offers himself instead. He volunteers. He completes the sacrifice that was supposed to happen all those years ago. And in doing so, he breaks the cycle and frees everyone, without Tabitha having to watch either of her children die after all. It's the kind of ending that would absolutely wreck me, and it's the kind of ending From has been quietly earning. There's a bigger picture forming behind all of this too. The reason the cycle may always end in a massacre is that the town is faced with that impossible choice and splits. One faction tries to go through with the sacrifice to escape. The other tries to protect the children, and they tear each other apart. Remember the man in yellow's words. This is the part where they tear each other apart. That may be him narrating the climax of every cycle that's ever run here. The horror isn't a monster in the dark. The horror is what ordinary terrified people do to each other when they're promised a way out. And maybe that's why Boyd matters so much, and why the show keeps treating him as untouchable. If we read Boyd as a wild card, someone the town wasn't reaching for, then his role becomes even bigger. The town seemed to be pulling for Abby, and Boyd showed up alongside her as the variable nobody accounted for. He's the man who stopped Abby from killing Ellis. He's the man who found the talismans, who held the town together, who keeps refusing to let the cycle run its course. Between Boyd, who keeps interrupting the town's plans, and Victor, who shouldn't have survived, this cycle has two glitches in it that no previous cycle had. And that might be the whole reason this is the run where the town finally has a shot at getting out. So that's the theory. Tabitha's fate was never to be eaten, it was to be broken. To watch her children offered up to keep this place fed, the same way it's happened to every version of her that came before. And the only thing standing between her and that ending is a man the monsters were never allowed to kill, who may decide to give them what they've been waiting decades for. Which leaves the question I can't stop turning over, and I want to hear what you think. Does the sacrifice have to be a child Tabitha actually raised? Or could it count if it's the surviving child of one of her past lives? Because if it's the second one, then Victor stepping forward really does save Ethan and Julie. But if it has to be her child specifically, then Victor's sacrifice might not be enough, and the show is setting us up for something even darker than that. Drop your read in the comments, and until the truth comes out of those woods, keep your eyes on the trees.